Menstruation. Is it really necessary? In fact, menstruation, as most of us experience it, is neither natural nor healthy. Ovulation does not depend on it, and it can be changed very much for the better, even to the extent of not experiencing it at all, yet remaining healthy and fertile. How this can be done has been known and written about by health practitioners for centuries, and practiced just as long by women willing to make the simple but significant lifestyle changes involved. In practice, this means that each meal contains more fresh, raw foods than cooked or processed foods, that animal product foods are eliminated altogether, along with salt, sugar, alcohol, refined fats and oils, most condiments, artificial additives, and stimulating beverages. Many people say that they would rather die than give up all that tasty stuff, and indeed they will, after living years in increasingly poorer health through menstruation and menopausal symptoms, and often ending with heart disease and cancer. If you are a young woman and not yet experiencing the uncomfortable and worrying signs of hormone imbalance that increasingly plague women from the mid-30s on, then you may balk at making such a change. But think back to when you were a teenager, just after experiencing your first period. Did you say, as so many do, "I'd do anything if I could get rid of these periods"? Certainly older women who have found out about the connection between diet and menstruation often say, "If I'd known this as a girl, I'd surely have changed, but I don't have the determination and drive now." They are literally worn out by decades of the curse, drained of health, vitality, and enthusiasm. Some of these women are probably thinking, "It's not long until menopause. I'll put up with it all a bit longer, then it'll be over." Unfortunately, only the bleeding will be over, often after years of miserably irregular menstruation. And the related signs of ill health soon become so dramatic they can't be ignored. Osteoporosis, cysts and tumors, and rapid aging among them. At this point, older women may once again feel motivated to improve their lot, even if it does involve big lifestyle changes. Hemorrhage in the uterus is no more normal than is hemorrhage in the brain or lungs. Why do women menstruate, and what's normal about it? During the days before a woman ovulates, the lining of the womb, the endometrium, thickens in preparation for a possible conception. If the egg released at ovulation passes through the womb unfertilized, the thickened endometrial tissues are not needed. And in a truly healthy woman, as in animals in their wild state, those tissues are mostly reabsorbed. What remains is expelled over a short period of time as a slight mucus discharge. The majority of women in modern cultures experience excessive, debilitating monthly bleeding, something that neither their wild primate relatives nor humans leading a more natural lifestyle do. Insightful doctors have long been aware that nature did not intend the ovulation cycle to be accompanied by cramping, nervous tension, or any of the long list of symptoms we've come to associate with having a period, let alone by the days of bloody flow we now accept as normal, but which they rightly call a hemorrhage. Menstruation is a harmful hemorrhage involving the loss of vital fluid. The conclusions of those gynecologists who have studied the subject are that, primarily and fundamentally, menstruation is a hemorrhage. No authority on earth can successfully maintain that a hemorrhage is natural and normal, no matter in what part of the body it occurs. Hemorrhage is not a condition of health. It is a pathological state and is always harmful and sometimes dangerous. Hemorrhage in the uterus is no more normal than is hemorrhage in the brain or lungs. It is less dangerous only because the uterus is less vital to the immediate welfare of the body. It has also been long observed that not only do some apparently healthy women, even in our culture, never menstruate, but that non-menstruating women can be fertile and have healthy children. That is, ovulation does not require menstruation. Natural hygiene teacher Herbert Shelton noted this in his patients. "I personally know one woman who is the mother of 5 children, and she has never menstruated in her life. I know another who menstruated during her adolescent period, married a man who had changed his way of living to a truly natural lifestyle. She joined him in his health regime and became a fine specimen of health and ceased menstruating. Thereafter, she had 3 children, all delivered naturally and painlessly, and never menstruated again in her life." So why do most women in our society experience such bleeding episodes? A clue comes from animals. Menstruation is absent in all wild animals except for some primates and rare bat species. However, many overlook the difference in what is expelled in such animals versus women. In animals, the endometrium, a thin layer of tissue inside the uterus, fully dissolves and is reabsorbed, preventing blood loss. In primates, it is either reabsorbed or expelled as microscopic mucus. In women who consume cooked food, the endometrium thickens due to hormonal imbalances and inflammation, leading to heavy bleeding, pain, and cramps, especially if it is fried, non-vegan food. Thus, in wild animals, the endometrium is either retained or expelled in minimal amounts. Wild relatives of the domestic animals do not menstruate. They have mating seasons, called heat, rut, or estrus, which usually happen only once or twice a year. At this time, the females ovulate, and their genital organs become slightly congested and moistened with mucus in preparation for mating and likely conception. In the wild, nature has tied ovulation closely to the availability of food, and in times of scarcity, estrus may not occur. But in domesticated animals and animals kept in zoos who have constant access to unnatural and often concentrated food supplies, the picture is very different. These animals experience a periodic bloody discharge, the equivalent of human menstruation. This is especially noticeable in normally plant-eating animals made to eat dry, high-protein feed. When these captive animals are instead fed on the fresh, natural plant foods they'd normally eat, the menstruation ceases. Animal observations have shown convincingly that the frequency of ovulation and hence estrus corresponding to menstruation in humans is a direct function of diet, overfeeding especially on protein foods, and of the wrong kind of protein has the tendency to accelerate, stimulate, the growth and bursting of the Graafian follicles, which produce the eggs, by creating an excess of follicular fluid. In women, this results in menstrual discharge. Undomesticated animals do not menstruate, but under conditions of domestication or captivity, these sexual periods become more frequent, and the genital congestion attending them becomes more intense until it finally manifests as a menstrual hemorrhage. It is now agreed by most observers that the cause of menstruation among domesticated animals is the food they receive at the hands of man. In other words, after the non-menstruating animal is captured, the proestrum becomes transformed into a bloody flow as a result of unnatural foods and artificial conditions of living. Is the cause likely to be any different in humans? No. The effects of congestion on womb tissues and the fine capillaries, or arterioles, which nourish them, are the same with all creatures who have those structures. And the key is live food. Structurally, the human body is designed for the same kind of diet that other primates eat. Our teeth, intestinal tract, digestive organs, and their secretions are not those of a carnivore like the wolf, nor a herbivore like the cow, but of a frugivore or fruitarian like the apes and most monkeys, whose natural foods are mostly fruits and vegetable matter. Modern man's diet, however, includes large amounts of protein foods from animal products and dried legumes and grains, none of which he can easily digest, and all of which leave his normally alkaline body in an acid condition. The body's attempt to neutralize this condition by keeping the blood calcium high results in badly disrupted mineral levels, with both calcium depletion from the bones and deposition of excess calcium in joints, blood vessels, and organs. On top of this, our high fat consumption clogs the blood vessels and leaves the blood thick with sludge, diminishing its ability to carry oxygen and nutrients. The body is overburdened by the task of dealing with excess protein and fats, with the large amounts of sugar and salt consumed daily, and with the often unavoidable external pollutants taken in day after day in modern living. Overwhelmed with this difficult-to-dispose of debris, the body stores what it can't eliminate in the fat cells and inside blood vessels, organs, and joints, often walling off or encysting the rubbish. Debris from incomplete digestion builds up in the intestine and overworked organs of elimination, blocking normal organ function. This debris attracts trouble for the body. Environmental poisons are stored in fat deposits or escape breakdown by the overworked liver and migrate to far-flung organs, including the brain, where the weakened body can't deal with them. These poison-laden tissues and deposits themselves become feeding and breeding grounds for microbes and parasites, natural co-inhabitants in our bodies whose numbers get dangerously out of hand because the weakened immune system hasn't the reserves to deal with them. Eventually, in desperation to survive, the cells revert to primitive forms which can function in virtual starvation conditions. Unfortunately for the body, the more primitive the cells become, the less they heed the working rules of the organ they belong to. They begin behaving independently, reproducing rapidly, amenable to no controls. The toxic-laden area becomes cancerous. Most of us living the Western lifestyle and eating a modern diet with its excesses, deficiencies, and adulterants exist in a state of chronic toxemia. Our bodies try repeatedly to clean up the situation with colds, fevers, and frequent discharges of waste-laden mucus. In the womb, this commonly takes the form of a whitish discharge referred to as leukorrhea, literally white flow. Leukorrhea, like menstruation, is a catarrhal condition, a downflowing of mucus due to chronic congestion and inflammation. It has been noticed that women who have profuse mucus discharges of this sort are also likely to have severe menstrual symptoms and problems with constipation. Like other catarrhal conditions, leukorrhea occurs in an acid body clogged with the byproducts of high protein consumption. Almost no one in our modern culture gets enough of the essential nutrients from their diet. The amounts in processed foods and drinks are negligible. Even their content in fruit, normally the richest natural source, is dramatically reduced after the fruit is picked and left to sit, or in storage before eating. Except for those who make a point of daily eating plenty of fresh fruits, most of us exist in a condition of subclinical scurvy, with bleeding and diseased gums, easy bruising, poor wound and bone healing, eye problems, and in women, this state intensifies menstrual bleeding. What has to change in the diet in order to eliminate menstruation? Foods which contribute to toxemia are no longer eaten. It means no more eating foods which sludge up or acidify the body. This means eliminating animal products, meat, fish, dairy, eggs, refined sugars and salt, and dramatically reducing grain foods and even processed plant fats, oils. The diet essentially must become true vegetarian or vegan, with a predominance of fresh raw fruits and vegetables rather than cooked. In particular, the greater the proportion of raw fruit in the diet, the less likely you are to have periods. Women who eat a vegetarian diet containing mostly raw food experience only brief periods, scarcely noticeable, with hardly any loss of blood. Dr. H.G. Byler, in his book, The Natural Way to Sexual Health, explains that women experience troublesome periods only because of the toxic condition of their blood brought about by the high-fat and protein Western diet. At least 50%, and ideally more of every meal should be raw, and that eaten first. This is so that the enzymes present in the raw portion can help the body digest the whole meal, including the cooked portion. Enzymes are protein molecules made by every cell and tissue in the body and used in every metabolic process. They break down food and transport nutrients, move cell wastes and prepare them for elimination, attach iron to red blood cells and phosphorus to bone and nerve tissue, dissolve blood clots and permit conception. And as part of the immune system, they attack and break down poisons and foreign substances in the blood and tissues. All foods in their raw state, even meat, contain the enzymes needed for their own decomposition. If food is eaten uncooked, its own enzymes can digest up to 75% without drawing on the body's reserves. Cooking food at 129 degrees Fahrenheit, 53 degrees Celsius, destroys all enzymes in it. If you eat a meal of such enzyme-dead food, your body has to bring enzymes from elsewhere to digest it. It's been observed that after a meal of cooked food, the blood's white cell count rises because these cells are used to transport extra body enzymes to the digestive tract to help digestion. Of all the foods, fruits are the most palatable and most easily digested. On a high fruit diet, no constipation occurs. Beneficial intestinal bacteria populate the bowel. The body remains in a desirable alkaline rather than acid state. The blood is pure and free of sludge and circulation, and blood pressure are good. Health practitioner Dr. George Starr White, author of The Emancipation of Women, or Regulating the Duration of Menses, believed that menstruation was unnatural and pathological. In his many decades of practice earlier this century, he helped thousands of women to overcome this malady so that their cycles no longer involved bleeding. And he did this by getting them to change from eating heavy cooked food to living on raw foods. Are there any problems to be expected when switching to a high raw diet? If coming from a traditional Western diet based on processed and cooked food heavy in protein and fats, plan to spend quite some time eating a transition diet before settling down to a raw foods lifestyle. This can involve weeks to years, depending on how toxic you are to start with and how difficult you find dropping old habits. The reason is simple. Toxin offloading can be unpleasant, especially if done all at once. Unless serious illness makes change urgent, you want to go through the process as gently as possible, and that means taking it slowly. Eating only energy-laden, easy-to-assimilate food like fresh fruit rests and heals the body to the point where it eventually feels up to the job of offloading some of the stored rubbish. This often quite toxic waste gets kicked back into the bloodstream from wherever it's been deposited and circulates through the body on its way to the liver and organs of elimination for final breakdown and removal. During the time the toxins are in circulation, you can feel awful with aches, sweats, fevers, and discharges as the body works to eliminate them. If you decide to go cold turkey onto a high raw lifestyle, you'll get rid of the wastes fairly quickly. But the cleansing crisis, there are likely to be several, can be uncomfortable. If you want or need to change your diet this quickly, do so with the guidance and support of a health practitioner who knows what to expect. This is especially true if your health is poor or you have a serious illness. Retreats where this kind of support is offered during several days to several week stays are ideal. Otherwise, plan on taking transition gradually and meeting the cleansing crises in smaller, gentler episodes rather than all at once. Some people barely notice them. Begin by dropping out some or all of the animal product foods and adopt a vegan diet that at first uses familiar cooked vegetables, grain and legume foods, as well as raw fruits and vegetables. You may find this stage more appealing if you incorporate Asian foods and flavors. Be careful not to overdo eating grains, a mistake many make. Too many grain foods create an acid body and contribute to both arthritis and cancer. Don't overdo use of oils either. They have their own serious health drawbacks. Avoid the artificial substitutes for eggs or the concentrated vegetable protein meat replacers. Stick to real, chemical-free whole food as much as possible. Many women like to move through a vegan transition stage that includes lots of salads of vegetables and vegetable fruits. These are in fact true fruits: tomatoes, capsicum, cucumbers, etc. It's easy to start off with vegan meals of cooked vegetables and a salad, and over time increase the salad portion while decreasing the cooked portion, all in tune with your own changing appetite. Because many of us start transition with some serious mineral deficiencies. How about iron deficiency anemia after all those years of bleeding? We often go through a stage of craving mineral-rich greens, which may well be the body's instinct homing on what, at that stage, we need most. After a while, the taste buds clear and become newly sensitive to even very subtle flavors. This helps turn us off the strong flavored foods we used to eat and makes ripe fruit increasingly more appealing. Learn when different fruits come in season and choose just picked local ones over those which may have been sitting in cold storage or shipped from afar. And of course, if possible, choose organically or biodynamically grown produce. You'll find yourself becoming more sensitive to all sorts of tastes and smells and able to detect many chemical traces in your food. It is entirely possible to live long and healthily on just fruit, radical as that seems. In the process of healing and ridding itself of old pollutants, your body will lose the fat it put on while carrying those toxins. You'll drop most weight in the first few months after you start eating mostly raw fruits and vegetables. Inclusion of grain foods or oils will slow weight loss down considerably. Once the body has done a fair bit of healing and house cleaning and is being sustained only on live foods, it starts to gain weight. If by this point you are eating a modest volume of fruit and leading a normally active daily life, you may gain several kilos and then stay steady at that lean ideal. Yes, you will be leaner than people in our society are used to seeing, but you will not be skin and bones or look anorexic. You will not be carrying any spare tires. Your muscles will be well defined, your hair thick and healthy, your eyes and skin clear and not prone to sun damage. Your sweat, breath, urine, and stool will have no smell. You'll sleep well, but at the same time will find you need less sleep than you used to, and you'll awake with abundant energy which won't disappear even during a day of working outdoors. If you work out, you'll increase muscle mass, and in fact, a number of record-holding athletes eat mostly raw diets. If you stop doing muscle-building work, the added muscle will be quickly lost. You will feel fit and energetic on a fruit diet, regardless of any extra exercise regime, but at the same time, you'll feel more like using your body than ever before. Ailments will disappear, and you'll notice you don't catch anything anymore. And of course, menstrual bleeding will end along with its attendant problems, as will the symptoms of menopause. If you are a young woman who has had irregular ovulation or difficulty conceiving, your ovulation cycle will eventually regularize. And if you are not taking precautions, you may end up with an unexpected pregnancy. If a woman has been following a fruit-based vegan diet for many years but still experiences menstruation, this may indicate ongoing toxin accumulation in the body. Possible causes include excessive consumption of nuts or high-fat fruits, such as avocado or durian, improper food combining, a sedentary city lifestyle, stress, or simply overeating. The time spent on a fruitarian diet is not as important as its quality, measured by the quantity and composition of the fruits eaten. You could be on a raw, vegan, or fruitarian diet for 50 years, but if you still have bloody discharge, while another woman who has been on the same diet for just a year no longer has it, that means her body has cleansed itself much more effectively. It's worth asking such a woman about her fruit choices, eating regimen, food intake, physical activity, and overall lifestyle. For example, a fruitarian diet, when you mix different fruits, slows down the cleansing process about 5 times more than a monofruitarian diet, where each meal consists of only one type of fruit. This video was created using materials from the article, Menstruation, Is It Really Necessary? From Waldorf Homeschoolers. The link to the original article is in the description below.